Top of the morning, everyone. It is Monday, July 1st. Yes, we've made it to July, and as expected, it's Monday, so I'm on the road again, en route to my normal runs all over the valley and such. Of course, there's a little bit of, as customary, I'd like to welcome my old stalkers and my new stalkers to this broadcast, and just driving on the road here, doing my thing, and getting to point B, C, and D before I have to go do other things. But anyway, so just a quick explanation. But last week, I wasn't able to do my normal Monday broadcast. Long story short. I had a few technical difficulties that I had to resolve at the moment, and I am glad to say that they are no longer issues that I have to deal with actively. So it was just kind of a bit of a rough Monday. I mean, if you have any other questions about that, it's stuff that I'm not even going to mention here on this broadcast, but if you are curious, I don't mind talking to you about it privately. But that was pretty much Monday. That, and combined with not enough sleep and then just trying to get work done for the day, it didn't put me in a really good position to have anything cohesive to say, or even just maintain a level of coherence that would be worthy of doing something like this. Anyway, speaking of which, it is 7:11 a.m. and I am starting to wake up now and doing my thing, but it is a bit. It's gloomy again. It's like you're thinking that June gloom is ended, but it's like we're into July. It's the 1st. It's dark enough, it's gloomy enough that I probably shouldn't even be wearing sunglasses right now, but I guess it just hides the red in my eyes, if I had to say anything else. So as I'm broadcasting right now, I've just approached the slowdown just passing LAX at the 105, and this is the part where I pretty much sit and twiddle my thumbs, but instead of twiddling my thumbs, I'm sitting here and jabbing away at life and things like that. If you are listening and you're on the East Coast, or if you're just kind of doing your thing, the Women on Wheels ride-in is happening in the next few days, actually, probably less than a week from now, and actually probably approximately a week from now. And so, most of my old Women on Wheels friends are making their way to Johnson City, Tennessee, for the ride-in, and unfortunately for another year. Well, actually, was it 2015? So yeah, the third year in a row. I won't be able to make it this year. I'm working, I have a life, and I'm under the age of 60. So, unfortunately, I can't take the time off, nor do I have the time off to do it. And I'm trying to finish this stupid master's degree. Now, I'm not going to call it completely stupid. I mean, it may have some genuinely, beneficial properties when I finish. Of course, I say this with the utmost sarcasm. But, I decided to pull a stunt and have 2 consecutive classes back to back during this summer session, so that I would be back in pace with all of the fall admits and graduate at the same time. I know it's kind of like that. It was a bit of a caveat to being a spring 2017 admit, is that if I wanted to graduate normally and not be one of those odd ones out where graduation would be in the fall, and I'd be like one of 6 people at a graduation ceremony, which really doesn't matter, because I graduate, I'm probably going to have maybe 6 people at my graduation ceremony, but it just allows me to finish in a traditional timely manner. So that is my summer. My summer is basically work, sitting on the 405, and going to classes at the same time, which surprisingly is working. Because I can pull off magic, and that's what I do. It's a little bit unusual for this week, though. My normal schedule is, and I'll be heading up to Studio City, Pasadena, and Chatsworth. is that after that, I actually get to teach a class. So this is going to be kind of interesting. I am actually going to be in West LA for the remainder of the week, teaching photography. This is July 4th, we don't have class, but I am the substitute teacher for photography for the West LA location. Which, if you are curious about where the West LA camp location is, it's right off the freeway, pretty much National in Barrington. It's in a nice little venue that we've had for a very long time. Also, we are only in week 3 of 10 weeks with performing arts workshops camps. If you do have any kids that are between the ages of 5 and 14 and are interested in doing cool things like musical theater, photography, guitar, stage effects, makeup, filmmaking, rock the mic. We even have, new for 2018, Camp LOL, which is an improv class, and Camp WOW, which is World of Wordcraft, which is a debate team. We actually do have those for this year. If you are curious, performing arts workshops with an s.com. And if you are really, really curious about getting into those classes, you can feel free to private message me, and I'll get you all the information you need. So if you have kids, if you have cousins, if you have nieces and nephews that want to get in on this stuff, this is something that I've been doing every year for the last 5 summers, and it's been an interesting time. I mean, I do enjoy what I do, but when you're up this early, some things are just marginally enjoyable, as you know. So that is what's going on with me on that front. Currently just waiting for Eleanor to come back. Yeah, I know, Eleanor's been missing. She's been in, she's been out, she's been in, she's been out. I know. It's like, okay, when are you going to stop talking about Eleanor in the shop? Well, it just seems to be something that, in many ways, I think like with me included, it's her time to heal. Eleanor's been my workhorse for the last 11 years, and I will say, all the time that we've spent together riding across the country, and just to pass the time, I will go into a little talk about the very first trip that she and I had started on, because today would have been exactly 11 years since we went on that first journey together, the really, really long journey together, to our first ride-in, our first Women on Wheels international ride-in back in 2007. So I will go into that story in a bit, because at the rate that I'm going, I could be hatching Pokemon eggs. It's pretty much that. But yes, the running joke about Eleanor in the shop. So what had happened was, she had been there since February, and then I got her back mid-June. So, several months of it in not being worked on, pretty much being delayed on worked on, which, I mean, with everything else going on in my life, it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, fine, you can go sit there for free. I don't have to worry about garage space or anything like that, and it's not like they were charging me for storage. But what had happened was, when I got her back in mid-June and I started riding, when I got back in mid-June and started riding her again, I was encountering other issues within 60 to 120 miles that I'm going, okay, this is something else that needs to be looked at. Lo and behold, that my suspicions were correct, and there was something else that was failing, and that is the reason why she had to go back in, and she's been there for the last 3 weeks or so, just waiting for a part to come in. The good news is that the part did come in. I got to actually touch the part, which, that's a nice confirmation that it actually exists, right? And it is scheduled to be installed on her this week. Now, preferably, I would really like it done this week, because there is some quick jaunts that I'd like to do. Some of these jaunts are not very quick. They're actually kind of time intensive, but it would just be really nice to have part of my soul back. I would appreciate it very much, and all that fun jazz. So hopefully I will have better news in regards to that this upcoming week. But unfortunately, I don't get to go to Johnson City, Tennessee, but I will have to admit At one point, I was musing on Google Maps, and I was like, okay, how many miles is it to Johnson City, Tennessee? And so Googled it, and it was like, 2,200 miles to Johnson City, Tennessee. Now, knowing that I completed a 2,000-mile run on Eleanor in 2.5 days. Actually, less than that. I completed 2,000 miles in less than 48 hours, actually 43 hours to be exact. I know that I could get to Johnson City, Tennessee in 2 days. If I were to ride like the Dickens, I could get to Johnson City, Tennessee in 2 days. Now, would it be pleasurable? By all means of the imagination, not very. And it would also require planning and perfect weather for me to make it straight across to Johnson City. And that would be just something that, it wouldn't really work out that way. So I'm like, okay, fine. That I'm just going to have to scratch that idea. And in 2015, when I flew into Wisconsin for that ride-in, which is the only time that I have not taken my motorcycle to a ride-in, I either just take my motorcycle or I don't show up. And the flying thing was a little bit of a challenge too, because I had to actually leave late Thursday night. Actually, it was like very early Friday morning, but I had to try to figure out how to get to the airport for a 5:30 a.m. departure on Friday. And unfortunately, there were I had no friends at the ride-in who were either willing or able to get me to General Mitchell Airport, which was about 45 miles away from where we were all staying. So that was a very interesting time, and I had to, let's just say I had to kind of last minute pay out the nose for a shuttle to get me all the way to General Mitchell. That was an interesting time. But going back to 2007, it was a very impromptu one. I did not expect to go to the ride-in at all in 2007. It was something that, I heard it was in Springfield, Missouri. And I was thinking, Springfield, Missouri, how would I get there? And I looked on Google and it was like, you just take I-40 straight, which I had done before. I did I-40 straight in the year prior as part of a job that I had where I drove across the country to transport a 2-year-old golden retriever from Palos Verdes Peninsula all the way to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts with a 1995 Ford Explorer. Yeah, I pretty much drove across the country to do that. So, I was experienced with I-40. I had done it once before, but I had done it in a car. I hadn't done it on a motorcycle. And this was the first, when I did this with Eleanor, I had only owned her, let's see here, April, May, June, July, about 3 months. So, we really didn't know each other that well. We were just, long distance rides for me were just something new that I was doing. And so I had a friend, and at the time I was a member of the Women on Wheels Iron Angels chapter in Los Angeles, which this chapter no longer exists. That was a weird ending. But at the time I was a member of the Iron Angels. So a fellow Iron Angel was like, I'm going to do the ride. I'm going to ride all the way to Springfield, Missouri. And I said, I looked at it and I realized I had the bike to do it. And this was about 2 weeks before the actual thing. And so I scrambled a little bit and got everything ready to do it. And I went and I did it. And it was hard at first, but then when you started just getting the miles under your belt, it just became something that was just an ongoing ride. You just kept going and going and going. And I made it to Springfield with my riding partner, and then stayed there until about Thursday afternoon. And that first ride-in, because I didn't realize how important the closing ceremonies were, I actually skipped out on the closing ceremonies, and I left early to ride all the way up to Duluth, Minnesota, and get fitted for the Aerostitch suit that I currently wear now. And this detour and making this loop around all the way back to Los Angeles and cutting down through Reno added up to about 4,400 miles for my very first trip on Eleanor. It was very lonely time, there was a point where I was kind of winging my way back as I went along. And one of the mistakes that I did make, and was one that was rectified in 2013 because I was riding with another friend on the way back to Ohio. And this was when I was actually living in Ohio at the time. And was US 16. So US Highway 16, if you actually look this thing up, US Highway 16 is one of the arteries that goes into Yellowstone National Park. It is a beautiful highway, it's a very twisty highway, and it's scenic. It's very nice. However, that does not count for what happens at night. And I was just one of those unfortunate souls that got stuck on US 16 after sundown and had to navigate the last 120 miles in the dark with no lights and nothing but my wits. It was a very scary time. I would consider that in my motorcycle career probably one of the scariest parts of my riding, like for one of the scariest rides of my life. I will have to say that by far. And I wrote about this at length, and it was hard. No one was around you. There was no civilization anywhere. I mean, you had deer all over the place. You had things that could potentially spring out in front of you. I'm trying to stay awake. Fortunately, it wasn't raining. It was a little warm. And, just keeping the audio in my helmet and making sure that I could still hear what was around me, having to honk my horn quite a bit just to make sure the deer weren't anywhere near me, and staying as aware and as conscious as possible until I made it all the way to Cody. So the end of US 16, or at least the first major section of or civilized area of Cody, where I was able to find a room, and then decided to spend the day in Cody and just take a break. So that was a very scary time. Now, the coolest part about doing this ride is that I did manage to hit the 10,000 mile mark on Eleanor during this trip, and that was a really cool accomplishment. I mean, obviously, I have long surpassed that milestone many years ago, but to have at least started my time with her in such a dramatic fashion, and after having acquired her just that April of 2007 and doing this in July, and by the end of December had already hit 20,000 miles on the bike, and just the memories were just starting to build, and the stories were starting to build, and it was a good thing. So that is a little bit of the synopsis of my 2007 trip. This was a trip that really cemented a lot of friendships that I made with people on the East Coast, and people that I still talk to at times, at least on Facebook. But I did meet quite a few people, and it was one of those rides that really made me realize that there are people out there that do enjoy riding as much as I do. I mean, I was a young one back then. I mean, 2007, I was only, 20 something, like 21 or something like that. And, I was pretty green to this long distance riding thing. I was lucky enough that I had the bike for it and everything like that. And I met quite a few people. I don't regret ever doing this ride-in. It was probably one of the coolest rides that I've done. I mean, subsequent ride-ins like 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, I made them all consecutively. And it wasn't until my life decided to take that turn. It's not a decision, it just did. But when my life took a turn in late 2013, and I missed the 2014 ride-in, that was a very difficult time for me. In many ways, I wish I would have made the 2014 ride-in, because it would have been just a nice place for me to have healed a little bit more. 2015 left me kind of contemplating my future with Women on Wheels, but I have to realize, and one thing that I did realize, especially with many of the good things that are happening now, is that you cannot put your loyalties to your friends and your motorcycle family and base it off of the actions of one single person. And so even though in 2015 I was this close to turning in my membership, I'm glad that I stayed. So I'm hoping that I can rejoin everyone next year, or at least within the next 2 years. depending on where the 2019 write-in will be announced, which to my knowledge has not been announced yet. I do know that my schedule will be a little bit freer, I'm hoping, in 2019. At least I don't have to worry about having to take a summer class. Let me just make sure that I pass all of my classes now, and then just make sure that happens. Let me get out with my piece of paper. I'm almost done. I really am. Which is a nice thing to say. 2 years in this master's program is more than enough for me. I'm good. And also with the pace of everything, and the way that my career has kind of taken a change, I'm good with not thinking about any additional advanced degrees at this moment in time, unless I'm given the opportunity of a lifetime to pursue something that justifies it, which is fine. So, while I've been jabbing away, I really haven't moved much. I am staring at the Howard Hughes Parkway sign as I sit here doing this, and I'm going to be staring at this sign for quite a while because I am not even moving at all, or I'm barely moving. But yeah, that's just my musing about this time of the year. This is the time of the year where I wish I was on my bike. I mean, granted, every single day I wish I was on my bike, but current situation does not really put me in a place where I can be. But I can dream about it for a little while, especially as I'm watching all the other motorcycles just whiz past me right now. But I often think it's like someday we'll come back to a level of normalcy, or at least going back to the things that we love to do. I'm looking forward to that day when I can. This is one of those kind of moments in time that you just kind of have to do the best you can. But here we are, right? So, yeah, that's what's up. I've got probably another hour of this driving, maybe 40 minutes. I have no idea. Depends on how things go with traffic all the way past the 10 freeway. This is my typical Monday, so not like much has changed. But if you're still listening, do appreciate it. It's therapeutic. At least when I'm able to talk about things that I'm allowed to talk about. And what I mean by allowed is more of, there are just certain things that just don't deserve to see the light of day. I will say though, at least the weekend was interesting. I did do a videography gig. If you were on Facebook or Instagram, I did post a video about somebody cutting some meat. There was a special event that I did cover on Saturday night. Kind of went a little late, and it was very interesting. And it involved a lot of food and karaoke, and I had to videotape the whole thing. Lots of fun. And yeah, there seems to be a running joke. Why is it that whenever I have to film something, it has to be in Pasadena? Well, anyway. So, Pasadena, it's where they make me work. It's all good. Aside from that, no hockey this week due to the July 4th weekend. So, hockey will resume next Friday, and we'll just be back in business for that. Anyway, if you had any other questions about stuff, or any motorcycle questions, live questions, what was I talking about questions, that sort of thing, leave them in the comments and I'll answer them later. I'll probably just give you a nice reply, or I'll PM you. Depends on what mood I'm in. But until then, be good to yourself. Do what you can to make yourself feel whole. And if you're stuck in traffic, think happy thoughts. Because thinking not happy thoughts, only makes the problem worse. All right? So be good, be kind, rewind. If you're under the age of 15 and you don't know what that means, just kind of roll with it. And I will talk to you all later.